Hi, Debbie.
Hello, Molly. Good morning. Good
morning.
afternoon.
Good afternoon. Good
Yes.
afternoon. In New York, or in North Carolina, it's 12. I still think I live in New York.
Yes.
This is the email you wrote to me. Sometimes on the Breaking Up with Sugar website, I'll put up a little note like anybody struggling with something, I want to come on the podcast. And this is what you wrote. I have not been able to put together more than 3 sugarless days, and also combined with problems with too much food. I am interested in talking to you about this. This is the part that made me literally cry on my way to vacation. In fact, it would be the single bravest thing I have ever done for my mental and physical health. I am a 69-year-old woman with over 57 years of diet hostage. It's really true, though. Asking for help is the single bravest thing we do. And doing it on a podcast, don't even get me started.
And when you read that, I come to tears.
Yeah. Well, what are your tears about?
My tears are hearing the desperation, and that the desperation of someone longing to have sense, not necessarily of weight loss, but a sense of just be able to go through the day free and enjoy and engaging with life instead of preoccupation with substances. So
yeah, eating disorders and addictions are such themes in all of it, right? They make us, and I don't use this as a judgment. This is just a fact. You know, they make our world so small and self-centered.
Yes.
That we just can't be at least in my experience, I can't be in any way the version of myself that is intended by God or whatever. I mean, do you find that?
I do find that. And what's interesting when you said that, I even remember as a little girl being connected with food more than connection with others.
Right.
So that part of even life being limited to the smallness, even I remember even as a child, that island, so to speak.
And remember, love, like old habits die hard. So if we're at 69 and you're like, well, I remember this was going on for over 50 years. Like it's just something to be gentle with. Like it's a thing. It's not a character flaw, right? It's an eating disorder. It's an addiction. It's whatever you decide to, want to label it, but it's not just us being bad. And I think it's interesting how full of shame this is. I mean, it sounds like it's filled with a lot of shame for you.
It's shame, and there's a lot of anger.
Tell me more.
A lot of anger that, let me put it this way, that no one notices the isolation that it had caused me. Even right now, sometimes the rage of others I hide it so well that no one would even have a clue.
Yeah.
That my internalization is just rageful.
Well, Debbie, we may have just put our clock it at 4 minutes into the podcast, but we may have just put our finger on the thing, right? And I've spoken about this on the podcast, but repetition is a form of prayer. So I'm not even asking for forgiveness. But Tara Brach talks about this idea of how we armor ourselves so well. We are able to put such a extraordinary protective armor around ourselves that we're banging on the armor, screaming for help, and nobody can hear us.
Yes.
Because our protection has become so supreme, has become so primal and so primary. Do you relate to that?
I do relate to that. I do. The primal part, it is self-protective, because sometimes with the anger, I'm not sure what would happen.
Do you think you would kill someone you're so angry?
No.
Yeah, me neither. So what could be the worst that happens?
I think
I
it's
just don't find you to be a homicidal person, you
I'm
know?
not, no,
Yeah,
my homicidal radar is really low.
yeah,
right
very
now.
low,
Yeah,
very
yeah,
low.
it's
Right,
low.
right.
I put away all my weapons. Everything's in a locked
What's the
closet.
big deal that you get angry? I think is my question, right? Like we're here, to me, it sounds, so controlled, like you really want help,
Yeah.
but there's a lot of conditions to get it.
Yes. Yes.
What are you
And
protecting?
oh gosh, what am I protecting? I'm protecting the part of that what I'm expecting others to give me, they're not able to give it.
Yeah. People are horrible. They're flawed till the day is long. You know what I mean? They are flawed till the day is long. That's the truth of life. People will always let you down. Doesn't mean we shouldn't trust them. It means we need to learn how to adjust our expectations of others. And I think this is really where we create the relationship with ourselves. So, but what I hear you saying is, well, I think the main reason I don't want to, what you're saying is I'm sitting here thinking like, oh my God, this woman is telling everybody's story right now. I hope that isn't invalidating to you. Like you don't think you're so terminally unique that this is everybody's. This is my story, frankly, when I first started too.
Yes.
Where I desperately want help and I desperately don't want anyone to help me because they won't do it the way that I want them to.
Amen. Okay, we're done.
We're done. Well, we need to solve it, but yes, at least I'm telling and it's interesting, right? Like Marty Lerner, who is my mentor, I don't think he invented this, but he always says like, the opposite of trust is control. And eating disorders are just like rooted in control, if you think about it, right? And then we lose control, and that's where we sit.
And what's interesting in my professional role, I am very, very flexible with giving to others, with work, etc. So when you say control, I sort of bristle at that a little bit. But
why?
Then
what bristles you?
I think it bristles me because in relationships and work, I really am, maybe it's the sensitive part of my brain. I pick up on intuition of other people's responses to me, and I can be flexible with their response.
What do you think? You might be flexible in giving, but not flexible in receiving? That you might be,
there you go,
super flexible. And I don't love this phrase, but super people pleasing with others. And maybe to such an extent that you're very scared and maybe demanding, but silently in receiving. Right.
I could see that to a point. I think because of my age, I have been very able to create boundaries though. Yet when you talk about the control of the food, that's the piece where it's hard for me to connect the dots.
I'll connect them with you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
When you think about food as a sense of control, a sense of nourishment, and a sense of nurturing, and you're saying, listen, Molly, I understand you and your power circle, you and your opposite of addiction is connection. Sounds wonderful, but there is pretty serious criteria of what I need in order for somebody to support me. Is that sort of what you're saying, right?
Well, that sounds so spot on that's spot on.
Well, so what I'm hearing you say is like, I don't have any human connection that is nurturing me and nourishing me.
No. That's so desperately sad.
Yeah, it breaks my heart. I also know you pretty well. And so like, I'm just keeping it together because we're on the podcast, but I think it's desperately sad. I think that's a really beautiful phrase, but it does make a lot of sense that you can't put together more than 3 sugarless days and that you have really lots of problems with volume of food.
Yes, I do.
That's because there's like a guarantee, whether it's misery, whether it's misery in the beginning, it's numbing and it's familiar. It's a familiar nurturing of food. Like the minute that we were given food to stop crying, whether it was milk, a bottle, whatever, this thing got complicated.
And it is the point of, at times, my thought life, and I know you have said, the belief or thoughts over and over. It is the thought life of, these negative thoughts won't go away. I mean, it's that, and
Well,
I
that's
don't
an
think-
opinion, that's one
Exactly.
opinion on it for sure.
Exactly. And I don't want to sound like a victim here, or that I'm not willing, because I am. It's the part of, like you said, do I have trust in Molly Carmel with what she's saying will work? Why
Well,
would
let's not put all your trust in me. I'm because you know why? Human beings are all screwed. Like, I will tell you something. I really believe about myself. Like, I think I am a wonderful person. I think my heart is the right place. I think I'm passionate. I think I'm fiercely loyal. And even I will mess up with you. And even I will let you down. And that's the point, is loosening our grip on our expectation of others.
Okay.
Right?
Okay. Yes.
Very interesting what Marsha Linehan, I don't think Marsha Linehan made this up either. These are just the people who have taught me the things. I just like to help you all get your teachers together,
Yes.
your alternate power circle. But Marsha Linehan always says that one of the main functions of shame is to protect us from rejection. You were at my divorcing dieting workshop where we talked about that.
Yes. Yes.
And that's what I'm really hearing that too. Like, I'm hearing, like, you have one of the most extraordinary mechanisms to protect you from being rejected. It's pretty skin tight. It's the beauty of the beauty of your longing, Debbie. Like, your longing is such a powerful, beautiful part of you. It's like that old Jew, the Maccabees. It's like, it's like the oil that should only last for one night, but it's lasting 69 years. That longing of wanting to get better. All I want to do is love on it and grow it and develop it. Because the rest of you is a mechanism so smart and so airtight, made to protect you from rejection, from people, from diet, from whatever it is.
Wow. I'm trying to sit with that for a little while.
Yeah, take a minute. We can cut it out. Take 10 minutes. We're gonna know where to go.
Can we dissect that a little bit?
Sure.
Please?
Where would you like to start cutting?
Let's start with the scalpel, with the first part of the shame part.
Right. So because I hear so much shame.
Yeah, that over theme of shame, if you would, please.
Yeah. So the beginning of what I'm hearing so much in what you're saying is shame, but I always think of shame as a function of protection.
Protection. Okay. So you've gotten through the epidermis.
Thank you. Yeah. So it's like you have this great, because like let's play the opposite card. Let's say, what my ideal would be for you, which would be like, feeling like you could have your screen on talking to me because your problems are just like everyone else's. And it doesn't matter what other people think of you. And I understand why you have your screen off. I think anybody comes on this podcast is amazing. And having people in your inner, middle, outer circle, knowing, being current with who you are and what you're struggling with, and having flexibility around their responses to it and acting accordingly. Maybe some people in the outer circle come to the inner circle. Maybe some people in the inner circle come to the outer circle, and having some freedom around accepting the nurturing of others and the nourishment of others and the nourishment and nurturing of life.
Yeah.
What your shame does is have you so sensitive to rejection that it's like, nobody can know what I'm going through. And by the way, when nobody can know what you're going through, oh my God, the expectation of like the 2.5 people that we tell, you know what I mean? Like,
yes. Yeah.
Poor souls,
Yes.
Well, I decided you're the one I'm telling, and now you let me down. I'm going to promise you something. Human beings are just the most we are so fallible, all of us. So are you. Which really, I just want to say on an aside, I would actually encourage you to be less flexible at work. I think you got to take some of that back so that you can start to be more, I think it'll allow for you to be more forgiving of others if you're not giving away yourself all the time.
Oh, all right.
Just something to think about.
Right.
There's a lot to think about, 16 minutes in, you and me.
That's right.
I can honestly say this is the single bravest thing you've done for your mental and physical health, though. Accurate.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it. So it's the part of being sensitive to rejection.
That's right.
Sensitive to rejection that in essence, I don't know who I am.
Sensitive to rejection. I'd even hypersensitive to rejection.
Hypersensitive. Uh-huh.
That you've created such a safety mechanism that you've created stories around being able to trust people. You've created stories around
Yes.
people's perception of your relationship with food and
Yes.
people knowing about it. That all of the stories that you've made up, all the belief systems that you've made up about it have created a space in which you can't receive help and you can't receive nourishing and nurturing, which is what help is, right?
All right. Yes. So I understand. So the stories have truly just been a creation of my book of just creating a barrier to what I really need.
Yeah. But remember, our brain wants us alive. It doesn't want us happy.
Yeah,
So,
I remember. Yeah,
that's
yeah,
right. Well, because I'm going to tell you something, and it's like such an important thing because God knows I don't need you experiencing shame with me. I love you too much. You know, this was created very early on. You know, when we have food stuff as early as you're talking about, you're like, listen, I was into my food very early, you know? So I'm just saying, like, there's a blueprint of you where something happened that you were taught that being rejected is just about the worst thing. I mean, that's the anthropological piece of rejection. That's why shame's so profound.
Yes. Yes. And it is all about, and I know this is a very basic level in any addiction, the ability to trust.
Yeah.
And seeing the part of being able to see others' authenticity. I think that I bring authenticity, yet there's that piece of the barrier of me accepting authenticity from someone else, perhaps.
Can I challenge it with you?
I don't know. Yes.
I just don't believe that you bring authenticity. I think you bring, and by the way, I didn't learn this in grad school. I learned it in therapy this week in my own therapy.
Yes. Yes.
With Keely, my therapist. Do you think you bring the best version of yourself, but maybe not the authentic version of yourself?
I don't know what that would be.
Oh, so perhaps like, because what I don't think you bring your authentic self, because our authentic self is sometimes like, hey, I can't go to dinner tonight because I'm too tired.
Oh.
Right. Hey, I actually can't take that extra patient today because I'm too booked and, you know, I just can't do it.
Now I would do that.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I would set those kind of boundaries. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Because something's missing in this equation for me, where I don't think, because if you brought your authentic self entirely, when we can be forgiving of others, we can be forgiving of ourselves. When we can be forgiving of ourselves, we can be forgiving of others. I just think we're missing something here.
You know, what's interesting, as you said this, I got this sense of energy, this like back and forth energy with what you're saying. I know this sounds sort of strange.
Not when you say energy with me, it's like my love language. So keep going.
It's like I'm picturing just someone in just a person, perhaps my husband, in the kitchen and actually feeling, wow, an energy back and forth. This is new. I mean, it's just a real subtle. I don't know how to
sort of starting to soften. It sounds like to what I'm saying.
It's a physical.
Well, it's interesting because like when what you're talking about a little bit when you're saying, you know, at the beginning of this, when you're saying, you know, there's no one I can trust in this world, which I understand completely. That's why I say it so flippantly. It's part of me. You know, it's really it is a lack of trust. And when we're not trusting, it's sort of willful. We're sort of full of our own will.
Definitely.
Right? And Marsha Linehan always says that when we're feeling willful, you're going to love this one, Debbie. Just putting a little cherry without syrup on it on top. She says, you know, when we're feeling willful, we need to ask ourselves, what's the threat?
And you know what, Molly? It comes back to the rage.
Mhm.
It comes back to the rage of, again, I know this isn't therapy, but it comes back to the rage of no one's going to be able to give me what I think I need.
Try
It,
something out
it
for
won't be
me.
good. It
Try
wouldn't be
something
good.
out for me. Try this out.
Okay.
Like just for a minute. And if you're a therapist listening, then don't listen if you don't like what I'm saying, but just try this out for a second. Let's just say for a minute. And I don't necessarily believe this is true, but I just want to try something out. Let's say in this moment, your rage is a secondary emotion. It's an emotion to an emotion. What do you think is what feeling do you think is underneath the rage that nobody can support you, that nobody is supporting you?
It would be the fear.
Yeah.
The isolation.
Any other feeling you can think of? Fear, isolation.
Vulnerable.
Okay.
Vulnerability.
Anything else?
Can
I throw you one?
Sure.
Grief, sadness.
Oh. Yeah. Yeah. That brought on a lot of emotion.
Yeah, we tapped into it.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Not many people want to talk to me, Debbie, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of sadness that we're
There's
missing
a lot
here.
of sadness.
Yeah.
Sorry, folks, for my tears.
Oh my God. Everyone's like, we love you, Debbie. Thank you.
Oh.
I mean, if I'm listening to this podcast and I'm like, oh my God, I'm just having the most lovely time because this is hearts talking to hearts. And that's what we're here to do. But interesting, your reaction to the tears, huh?
Yeah, it is.
Do you see that? There's a lot of shame. That whole sentence was that was a shame reaction. You see it? You're like, don't reject me. I'm sorry, I'm crying. You see, it's a sensitivity to rejection. Might I also suggest while we're up, I really, really think that your lenses are distorted.
Okay.
Because you crying on a podcast for people like looking for truth and looking for connection is like basically like 100% on Rotten Tomatoes. Like that's all people want from this podcast.
Yeah.
But your first reaction when your tears came was to apologize for them.
Yes. Yes. That's clear. It is.
Yeah.
It is clear.
That's sad. Because it doesn't allow for you to accept and receive.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's how should I put it? It's very sweet to me to hear that.
I mean, it's just a truth of being human. I'm so excited that I'm teaching it to you at 69 years old.
I know. Let's see here. I'm embarrassed with that.
My gosh, I think it's so funny. I just want to say, I think your lenses are really distorted.
Okay.
I think you're the bravest person I ever met in my life. I just think like you're just like here, like going for it. Like we just did like 17 years of therapy and it's 12:26. You know what I mean? Like, come on now. Can you try? It is true what I say, and it's not what I say. It's just what is true, that a belief is a repeated thought. Like, is it possible that like your beliefs are just completely distorted and they've just been repeated for like 57 years?
I think before this experience right here, I probably would have said intellectually, yes, you know, reality, right. Blah, blah, blah.
Head. Heart's like, don't go there.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And heart was just like, okay, whatever.
Good for you, Molly.
Yeah.
Good for you and your connection with others, Molly. Good for you.
I love it, Molly. Good for you, but not for me. But I think with getting, as we had said before, the ... I think the ... now has come down a little bit more to the heart of wow, this is something that does need an intervention and that needs to be worked on.
Yeah. Gently though, really, really gently.
And see, I never understood that soft place when you would talk about soft.
Yeah. That
was hard for me to.
Pema Chodron might be one of your teachers. She really talks so beautifully about this. She's a Buddhist monk. She really talks a lot about this and a lot about gently accepting. And I mean, she really just might be your teacher and anybody else who's on Debbie's page today.
Yes. Yes.
Just don't break up with me as your teacher. Okay. Add Pema.
Yeah. Well, the
See,
thing
we're
is,
all afraid of rejection, Debbie.
yeah, I didn't know it went so deeply into the sadness and the grief.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
funny. I actually think your sadness and grief is more profound than your fear. I think you're protecting sadness and grief much
Oh.
more than you are scared.
Okay, see, that's the first time this has ever been even a light shown on it, sort of.
Well, might I mention that your openness is what is healing you right now?
Oh, thank you.
Well, that's what's true. I mean, the reason you're getting so much done right now is because you really made this decision to just crack it open with me. You know, I don't feel
true.
any resistance in our conversation. I don't think you have I mean, can you imagine if you just had conversations like this with your inner circle, how much less hungry you would be?
Yes.
And for
I-
whatever it's worth,
yes,
when we're
yes.
talking about sugar, more shamanically, how much less sweet you would need in your life if you had more conversations like this.
Okay, that'll take me learning how to do this then.
Yeah, well, of course, it's a process. But listen, I have to say, I think the first piece of it for you is being a little bit more resilient around people letting you down. People are just doing their best all the time. This was such a hard one for me, but I love that idea. Try this one on.
Okay.
You know, they're not doing this to me. They're just doing this.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. It does. And
sorry, go on.
No, I think sometimes, like what you're saying, I take it all in. I get somewhat of a sensory overload too, and I can't even articulate it.
But I think it's a lot of that is because you've put such an extraordinary amount of pressure on yourself and on the other person because you don't have 10,000 hours of this, right? You're like, it's every conversation is the Super Bowl, you know, every conversation, right? So it's like, and
Right.
that just takes so much energy. And, you know, and your endocrine system, you're a nurse, your endocrine system's on overload. Like, I wouldn't want to have a conversation with another person either.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what happens at the end of the day. I don't want to have a conversation.
Well, I think that, listen, there, you know, helper to helper, I do want you to look at your schedule and how much you're giving, because I had that happen in my life too. And I really had to adjust. How do I say it? Like how I experience therapy. I had, you know, not like give less, but I just had to put different sunscreen on as a therapist because it was really impacting me as a person, which I don't think makes me a good therapist, by the way.
Yes, understood.
And then it really impacted my outside relationships because I was so isolated. So all I was doing all day was listening intensely and helping. And then my friends or my partner said, "Do you want to go to dinner?" And I'd say, "I'm too exhausted." And no wonder I was binging my brains out. Imbalance.
Yes. Can I say yes again?
Say yes all day.
Yes.
I'm here for it, Deb.
Yes.
So I think it is that softening to, you know, I think listen, I think you're having a lot of aha moments. I hope everybody else is with us. I'm having a lot of aha moments, but I think you want to start with noticing that armor.
Yes.
Are there people in your life who have an understanding of the struggle you have with food?
I have been in all types of food recovery, all types.
Yeah.
And I probably would say there's probably 2 people through these years.
Through 57 years, two people. Yeah.
But it's probably been the past 14 that I've been in a recovery group. I would say 2.
And these two people you feel like you could like share pretty honestly
Yes.
with, and they're going to be okay.
Yes.
Do they ever let you down?
One, no, the other one, at times, just because of there, and again, my expectation is for her to listen to me and not to get into her own dialogue
Oh,
of,
the nerve of her. Yeah.
yeah, to become on her
God,
tangent.
people talking about themselves. Jeez.
Yeah, it's like, listen, it's about me.
Yeah. I thought I mentioned I'm not interested in feedback. I'm interested in giving it to you and you holding it for me. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like the old Seinfeld line, hey, it's about me.
Right. It's
Come on
about
now,
me.
it's about me.
But again, that's a function of shame, right?
Yeah.
You're like, I don't want your feedback because I don't want to experience sometimes it sounds like you experience feedback as rejection. And it's sort of about untangling that. That's what I mean.
Oh,
yeah.
Now that's deep.
Great. Should we say it again? I'll say it again, just
say
because
that again.
sometimes I talk over, I get in so much trouble from my production team.
Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like sometimes you experience feedback as rejection.
Yes.
It's so interesting. You're like a highly tuned radio to rejection. It's like, we got to lower the volume on that.
Yes, because I see the rejection as the thought, maybe her or his thought process going to them as rejecting to me.
Right.
Yeah. So I get what you're saying.
So someone's saying to you, hey, like maybe you want to not go to dinner tonight. And you're like, stop saying I'm a bad person. Maybe that's just my experience of feedback sometimes. Oh, life. At least we can laugh about ourselves, Debbie. That's the whole thing. Lighter, it's not so.
Right.
But everybody, but the problem is like, the thing with me is like, I've just had I have $10,000 about this. Like, we're all just doing our best. Right.
Yes.
And that's what you have to, and there is a partial, so I do think there's a idea of noticing, but really making sure that you're in your wise mind, like you're in a soft heart, open mind when you're talking to people. I think in the beginning, when you're starting to share your stuff with people, it may feel a little bit deliberate and robotic.
Yes.
Like you're going to be having, like, it's like, you're not really going to be present in the conversation because you're going to have to be like chaining your behavior, like on a side, right? It's like, you're going to be in a Zoom meeting, but also there's going to be chat going on the side.
Yes. Yeah.
So you'll say, yeah, and you'll be noticing, oh, wow, I really want to hang up the phone. Okay, so that's shame. Okay, so she's not rejecting me. Let me go back into the conversation. Let me take a deep breath. Okay, and you're going to notice like the ping pong that's you being in and out and in and out and in and out. And what I can promise you is it will soon feel like a golf game. It will not feel like ping pong anymore.
Wow. Okay. Very interesting.
Yeah, it's exhausting, but I think really worth it,
Yeah. And I think I do, just to give myself kudos, I think I can pick up on that.
I'm sure of it because of what you're saying. Well, and I think the other thing you want to look at is you're over giving, under receiving. Of course you can. You're like so intuitive. We just need to like rework your intuition to work for you instead of constantly people pleasing people, which is fueling your anger, which is fueling your fear, which is really, really reinforcing your grief.
Oh, that's so powerful. Using intuition to feed myself.
Right.
Wow. Okay, we can stop. No.
Well, I just want to say like, and I actually think it's a great point to sort of, but like, I want to say like, and then forgiveness comes in so easily there, right? Because like, you can forgive others for just being human, and then you can forgive yourself for just being human. If you're saying totally fine, yes, I'm flexible, or whatever it is, and whatever it is that you're overgiving, I can't really tap into it. I think it's another podcast. I just always remember when I said to my friend Rob many years ago, he said, let's do 9:30 dinner. And those are the days that I couldn't eat past 7 because my eating disorder was just really healing. And I was prioritizing myself for the first time ever. And I said, I just can't go to dinner tonight. I'm too tired and I can't eat that late.
Yes.
It was the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. And he just said to me, oh, thank God that you're canceling, because it is so hard to be friends with you because you just, you're so perfect. And I was like, yeah.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. And then I just started canceling all the time, and it was such a treat, and I'm such a better person for it.
So how did you respond to you're just so perfect?
I giggled in my head because I was like, 3 days out of like the biggest relapse of my life, kind of wanting to kill myself all the time. So
Okay.
like my outsides really didn't match my insides in that moment. And I
Yeah.
really thought like, wow, what a cost to myself showing up for these people all the time. And I would say that, you
I
know, 15 years later, the person I am now who says no, who says, can we eat earlier, who has more skills, I think is a far better friend, partner, therapist, coach, all those things.
I see. So there wasn't any kind of, when that label of perfect, there was no sense of defensiveness with it.
I was really tired though. I
Okay.
understand what you mean. I wasn't like, don't call me perfect. I was like,
Okay.
I was like pretty surrendered at that point, but I know what you mean. Like, I wasn't like, don't call me perfect, but listen, I think he was really on the, I think he had his hands on the
Yes.
buzzer there. Cause I was like, cause it was the first time I'd ever really set a limit, and it was a relief to him. And I think I was so shocked by the relief
Yes.
of me canceling, because I was absolutely positive he was going to say, I can't be friends with you anymore. And we had been friends for like 30 years at that point.
Yes.
So some of my own myths about interpersonal relationships were challenged in that moment.
Okay.
But the only way we can relearn all of this is to do it.
Okay. Okay. Wow. Just
well,
wonderful.
I mean, this is really, I can't even, if I was listening to this, I'd be like, I need to listen to this one 7 times. There's a lot to take in. You're amazing. Thank you for your, this is the day, you know, the most vulnerable day of your life. And look how it came out for you. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling a sense of just this sense of relief, gratitude. This is sort of like being joyful, overwhelmed with gratitude. And I want to say, I'm sorry for my tears, but then I know I don't need to do that.
That's right.
So it's a sense of just extreme gratitude.
Yeah. See how
Today.
unhungry you are right now?
Yes, I do.
It's
yes,
possible.
I do.
Yeah. You deserve the nourishing and nurturing, like the real kind.
Oh, thank you.
I love you. I believe in you with my heart and soul.
Oh, I adore you, and I adore what you do for all of us. Thank you.
Thanks for coming on the show, my love.
Okay. All right.